The Vespera moved like a shadow between stars, its obsidian hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Commander Elisande Voss stood on the bridge, her sharp features illuminated by the tactical display as another world burned in their wake. The once verdant agricultural planet Catraxis now glowed with nuclear fire. The fifth world they'd cleansed in as many weeks. Confirmation, Commander. Total planetary sterilization achieved, reported Lieutenant Orion Wraith, his voice oddly detached, as billions of alien lives were erased from existence. Log it, Elisande replied, her slate-gray eyes never leaving the burning world on the view screen. Set course for the Moravian system. Nobody aboard questioned their mission anymore, not after what the Tirkane had done to Earth. Not after they'd watched the live streams of human children dissolving from the inside out, their bodies hosting the aliens' parasitic offspring. Not after 3 billion humans perished in less than a week. The Vespera represented humanity's calculated response, the last surviving warship of Earth's defense fleet, retrofitted with technology recovered from the first Tirkane vessel they'd managed to capture and reverse engineer. What they lacked in numbers, they made up for with technological superiority and the cold fury that only a species facing extinction could muster. Elisande moved to her private quarters, the door sealing behind her with a hydraulic hiss. Only, here did she allow herself to feel the weight of their mission. She activated her personal log. Day 317 of Operation Scorched Earth. Catraxis nullified. Intelligence suggests the Tirkane High Command never anticipated we would sacrifice entire planets to destroy their hives. Their expansion relied on our compassion for indigenous species. They miscalculated. She paused, rubbing the bridge of her nose where a tension headache was forming. The surviving human colonies remain hidden. Earth is lost, but humanity will endure. For every human life they took, we will take one of their worlds. Their empire spans 27 systems. We've destroyed 5. 22 to go, orbital specialist. Kovo Imari's voice interrupted through the comm. Commander, long-range scanners detecting unusual activity in the Helios drift. Possible Tirkane scout vessels. Elisande's exhaustion vanished instantly. Battle stations. I want tactical options. In 3 minutes, as klaxons blared throughout the ship, Elisande felt the familiar ice forming around her heart. The Tirkane had believed humans too weak, too compassionate, too divided to pose a serious threat. Their first mistake was attacking Earth. Their second was leaving survivors. The Vespera accelerated toward the new threat, weapons systems charging. Behind them, Catraxis continued to burn, a funeral pyre visible across light years, a warning to any species considering alliance with the Tirkane. Side with humanity's enemy, and your world dies next. One by one, planets would fall until the Tirkane understood what they had awoken in humanity. Not just vengeance, but extinction-level retribution. The Moravian system's primary star cast a sickly orange glow across the Vespera's bridge. Elisande studied the tactical display with narrowed eyes. 3 habitable planets orbited the star, all 3 infested with Tirkane hive clusters. Pre-war, this system had been home to the Moravians, an aquatic species known for their mathematical brilliance and peaceful disposition. Life signs? Elisande asked, though she already knew the answer. Negative on indigenous Moravian biosignatures, replied Science Officer Daiyu Xiao, her fingers dancing over holographic controls. Tirkane life signs concentrated on all 3 planets, heaviest on Moravia Prime. Estimate 2 billion individuals. 2 billion parasites that would, if given the chance, spread across the galaxy consuming every intelligent species they encountered. 2 billion threats to what remained of humanity. They've converted the oceanic megastructures into breeding pools, Weapons Officer Zafre Kalani observed, disgust evident in his voice. Those were wonders of the galaxy once. Elisande nodded. And now they're targets. Deploy Nova protocols. The TI. Nova Protocol was the pinnacle of human weaponry, artificially induced stellar instability. Within hours, the Moravian sun would collapse and then explode, taking all 3 planets with it. It was wholesale slaughter by any definition, but against the Tirkane, proportional response meant nothing. Only extermination would suffice. As crew members carried out their grim orders, Medical Officer Verity Kadros approached Elisanda, her dark eyes troubled. "Commander, may I speak freely?" "Always, Doctor." "The crew is showing signs of psychological strain, increased nightmares, dissociative episodes, anger management issues. We're becoming something unrecognizable." Elisanda gestured toward the view screen where the first Nova deployment vessels were launching. "Do you think I don't know that, Verity? Do you think I don't see what this war is turning us into?" She lowered her voice. "We're the exterminators. Now. But what choice do we have? The Tirkane don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They see every other species as nothing but incubators and food." "I'm not questioning the mission," Verity clarified. "I'm concerned about what happens. If we win, can we come back from this?" Before Elisanda could answer, the ship's AI interrupted. "Commander, we're detecting a transmission from the surface of Moravia Prime. It appears to be in human standard language." Elisanda froze. "Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with static before a human voice emerged, weak, pained, but unmistakable. "To any human vessels. This is Dr. Remy Okoro of Earth Science Vessel Horizon. There are 27 human survivors being held on Moravia Prime. The Tirkane are using us for experiments. If anyone can hear this, please." The message dissolved into static. Silence fell across the bridge as every crew member turned. To Elisanda. The Nova deployment was already underway. They had perhaps 6 hours before the star began its collapse. "Options!" Elisanda demanded, her voice tight. Tactical Officer Lysander Webb spoke first. "We could send in the Phantoms." The Phantom units were their elite extraction team, augmented soldiers who'd survived the fall of Earth. Against a planet of 2 billion Tirkane? "Suicide mission," countered Security Chief Rana Mukherjee. Elisande stared at the planets on the view screen, her reflection ghostly in the glass. 27 survivors. The population of Earth had once been 12 billion. "Prepare the Phantoms," she ordered. "We have 6 hours to attempt extraction before we lose the system." As the crew rushed to comply, Verity lingered. "And if we can't, extract them in time?" Elisande met her gaze unflinchingly. "Then they die, as billions already have. The mission doesn't change. One by one, planets burned so that humanity might live, even if it meant leaving their own behind." The Phantom's dropship cut through Moravia Prime's atmosphere like a blade, countermeasures deploying automatically to blind Tirkane detection systems. Inside, 8 soldiers checked their weapons with practiced precision. Each wore powered combat armor, matte black with the insignia of Earth's last defense force emblazoned on their shoulders, a phoenix rising from planetary ashes. 3 minutes to insertion," announced the pilot, Colonel Nasira Chikelu, her voice steady despite the turbulence buffeting the small craft. Team leader Major Elian Savas nodded, his scarred face impassive beneath his helmet's transparent faceplate. "Remember, this is extraction only. Grab the survivors and go. We have—" He checked the chronometer built into his gauntlet. 5 hours and 22 minutes before this system becomes a supernova." The youngest team member, Specialist Ivo Locke, shifted nervously. "What if they're not all in one place? What if the Tirkane have separated them?" "Then we grab who we can," Elian replied, his tone leaving no room for discussion. "The mission—" "Parameters are clear. We don't sacrifice ourselves or the Vespira for 27 people." The dropship landed with a muted thud on the outskirts of what had once been the Moravian capital, now transformed into a grotesque hive structure. Bone-white spires rose from the ground, connected by glistening organic matter that pulsed rhythmically. Biorhythm. "Scanners active," reported Sergeant Kira Noor as the team disembarked. "Human signatures detected 2 kilometers northeast, deep inside the central hive structure." They moved like ghosts through the alien landscape, their armor's adaptive camouflage, blending with the surrounding environment. Overhead, the sky had taken on an unnatural ripple pattern, the first visible sign of the Nova Protocol's effect on the local star. The first Tirkane they encountered was a worker drone, twice the height of a human with 6 spindle-like limbs, and a segmented exoskeleton. Elion dispatched it with a silent energy pulse before it could alert others. "These are different from the ones that hit Earth," observed Corporal Damari Tivos, studying the corpse. "They're evolving to this environment. All the more reason to burn it all," Kira muttered. As they penetrated deeper into the hive, resistance increased. The team moved from chamber to chamber, eliminating Tirkane guardians with cold efficiency. Each chamber contained horrific evidence of the aliens' work: dissected Moravian bodies, experimental breeding pools, and worse. In one vast chamber, they discovered thousands of translucent sacs attached to the walls, each containing a developing Tirkane larva. The sight momentarily froze even these battle-hardened soldiers. "This is what they planned for Earth," Elian said quietly. "For us." They reached the central chamber to find 16 human survivors confined in transparent cells filled with nutrient fluid. Most were unconscious, some visibly mutated from Tirkane experimentation. "Life signs stable in 11 subjects," reported Kira after a quick scan. "The others are too far gone." Elian made the call without hesitation. "Extract the viable 11. Terminate the others." As they worked to release the survivors, the chamber's main doors burst open. A massive Tirkane entered, clearly a commander caste, its exoskeleton adorned with bioluminescent markings. Behind it poured dozens of warrior drones. "Nasira, we need immediate extraction," Elian barked into his comm. "Hostiles incoming. We have 11 packages." The firefight was brutal and short. 2 phantoms fell before they could reach the extraction point, their bodies overwhelmed by acid-spitting warrior drones. The survivors, weak and traumatized, had to be carried. As the dropship lifted off, Elian looked down at the hive through the viewport. The sky was now visibly distorting as the star began its death throes. In less than 4 hours, nothing would remain of this system. Aboard the Vespera, Commander Elisand waited as the medical team rushed the survivors to quarantine. Their hollow eyes and altered bodies told a story of unimaginable suffering. "We lost Phantoms Talos and Vex," Elian reported, removing his helmet to reveal haunted eyes. 5 hours of star death remaining," Elisanda nodded grimly. "Then we stay, to watch it burn. They deserve witnesses." One by one, planets died so that these horrors could never reach another world. Dr. Remy Okoro sat wrapped in thermal blankets in the Vespera's quarantine bay, the only survivor coherent enough for debriefing. His body bore the marks of Tirkane experimentation. Strange nodular growths along his spine, eyes altered to an iridescent purple. Yet his mind remained his own. "They're not just conquering," he explained, voice hoarse from disuse. "They're searching for something they believe humans possess." Elisande leaned forward. "What could we possibly have that they want? They destroyed our homeworld, killed billions of us." "Genetic resilience," Remy replied. "Most species they infect die within hours. Humans can last days, sometimes weeks. Some, like myself and the others you rescued, don't die at all. We adapt." Tactical Officer Lysander pulled up data on his tablet. "That tracks with what we've observed. They're not just spreading randomly, they're specifically targeting worlds where humans had established outposts or research stations." Outside the viewport, the Moravian system's star began to visibly collapse, its corona flaring in spectacular arcs. They had less than an hour before the final detonation. "If what you're saying is true," Elisanda said slowly, "then every survivor becomes both a target and a weapon." Remy nodded weakly. "That's why they kept us alive. They're trying to incorporate human genetic material into their own biology. If they succeed, they become unstoppable," finished Science Officer Dai Yu, "adaptable to any environment, resistant to any countermeasure." The implication hung heavily in the air. The Vespira's mission had just become even more critical and complicated. They weren't just avenging Earth now. They were preventing the Tirkanae from achieving biological supremacy. "Is there any way to use this against them?" Elisanda asked. Remy hesitated. "Maybe. I was working on something before they captured me, a targeted retrovirus that could potentially rewrite their adaptive processes. With Dr. Xiao's help, I might be able to reconstruct my research." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Orion's voice came through the intercom, urgent and strained. "Commander, to the bridge immediately. Tyrkani vessels emerging. From FTL, dozens of them." Elisanda rushed to the bridge to find chaos. The view screen showed the impossible. A Tirkane fleet materializing around the dying star. "How did they respond so quickly?" she demanded. "They couldn't have," Orbital Specialist Kovo replied. Unless they knew we were coming," Elisanda finished, cold realization dawning. "They're tracking us somehow." As the bridge crew frantically prepared defensive measures, Elisanda's mind raced. The Tirkanae ships were positioning themselves in a blockade formation, cutting off the Vespira's escape vectors. "Time until Nova detonation?" she asked. 37 minutes, replied Lysander. Elisanda studied the tactical display. The Vespira was powerful, but not powerful enough to fight through an entire fleet. They needed an alternative. "Plot a course through the star's corona," she ordered. Stunned silence met her command. "Commander, with the stellar instability we've induced, passing through the corona would subject the ship to catastrophic radiation levels," protested Navigator Ezria Moore. "Better than certain destruction by the Tirkane fleet," Elisanda countered. "The Vespira's shields were designed to withstand extreme conditions. We'll divert all power to forward deflectors." As the crew prepared for the desperate maneuver, Elisanda sent a private message to Dr. Xiao. "Begin work with Dr. Okoro immediately. If we survive this, we need that retrovirus." The Vespira turned toward the dying star, engines straining. Behind them, the Tirkane fleet gave chase, their organic-looking vessels spreading out to cut off escape. "Entering Corona in 3, 2, 1, announced Ezria. The ship shuddered violently as it plunged into the stellar inferno. Warning lights flashed across every console as temperature readings soared. Hull integrity alarms screamed for attention. "Shields at 62% and falling," reported Kovo, sweat streaming down her face from the heat penetrating even the environmental systems. Through the view screen, they watched 3 Tirkane vessels attempt to follow them into the corona. The aliens' ships, evolved rather than engineered, lacked the Vespira's specialized shielding. One by one, they disintegrated in the stellar fire. 17 minutes to Nova detonation, Lysander announced, his voice tight with strain. The Vespira emerged from the corona's far side, shields critically damaged but still intact. Without hesitation, Elisanda ordered maximum acceleration away from the system. Behind them, the star began its final collapse, pulling the remaining Tirkane fleet into its gravitational well. As the Vespira cleared the system's edge, a blinding flash filled the view screen, the Moravian star exploding in a spectacular supernova, taking with it 3 planets and a substantial portion of the alien fleet. In the sudden silence that followed, Elisande addressed her exhausted crew. "Plot course for the Halcyon Nebula. We need time to repair and regroup." One by one, planets died. But for the first time, there was a glimmer of something beyond vengeance. A possibility of fighting back in a way that might actually end this war. The Halcyon Nebula's swirling gases provided perfect cover for the damaged Vespera. Iridescent, clouds of stellar dust obscured them from long-range scanners while the radiation interfered with tracking systems. It was as close to safe harbor as they could find in a galaxy where humanity had become prey. In the converted laboratory section, Dr. Remy Okoro worked alongside Dr. Dayu Xiao, their faces illuminated by holographic gene sequences floating between them. The other survivors remained in medical stasis, their mutated bodies providing crucial data for the retrovirus research. The Tirkani communication system is biological, Remy explained to Commander Elisanda during her daily briefing. They use pheromones for local communication, but for interstellar distances they've developed something else. Quantum-entangled neural nodes. Elisanda frowned. That's how they found us at Morovia. But how are they tracking us? Remy's altered, purple eyes fixed on her. I believe one of your crew is carrying a Tirkani neural transmitter without knowing it. The implication sent ice through Elisanda's veins. You're suggesting we have a sleeper agent? Not necessarily conscious collaboration, Dayu interjected. The transmitters can be implanted subcutaneously, undetectable except with specialized equipment. Anyone who survived direct contact with the Tirkani could be carrying one. That description fits several crew members, including some of Elisanda's most trusted officers, people who had fought beside her since Earth fell. How do we find it? She asked. I've modified a medical scanner, Remy replied. We can begin testing immediately. As they implemented ship-wide screening, tensions among the crew rose. Everyone who had been on a ground mission was suspect. Rumors spread. Old friends regarded each other with newfound suspicion. The discovery, when it came, shocked everyone. The neural transmitter wasn't in a crew member at all. It was in Elisande herself, embedded near her brainstem. A souvenir from the battle of New Luna, where she'd been wounded, but had somehow survived a Tirkani ambush that killed her entire squad. Can you remove it? She asked Medical Officer Verity, trying to keep her voice steady, despite the knowledge that she had unknowingly betrayed her own mission. Yes, but there's a risk, Verity replied gently. Its tendrils have integrated with your nervous system. Removal could cause permanent damage. Elisanda didn't hesitate. Do it. But first, let's use it to our advantage. Over the next 48 hours, they executed a daring plan. Instead of removing the transmitter immediately, they used it to feed false information to the Tirkani, reporting the Vespera's destruction in the Moravian supernova. Meanwhile, Dr. Okoro's retrovirus research progressed rapidly. The virus is ready for testing, he announced on the 5th day in the nebula. But we need a live Tirkani subject. Security Chief Rana objected immediately. Bringing one of those things aboard is suicide. Not if we can capture a drone cast, Remy argued. They have limited intelligence without a commander present. Elisanda, still recovering from the transmitter removal surgery that had left her, with intermittent tremors in her right hand, made the call. Set course for Demetria Station. Intelligence reports it's been converted to a minor Tirkani outpost. Small enough for us to handle, remote enough that if things go wrong, we can sterilize it without alerting their major hives. The raid on Demetria Station was precise and clinical. The Phantoms, led by Major Elian Savus, captured 3 Tirkani worker drones and eliminated all others. They returned to the Vespera with no casualties. In a heavily secured containment, Lab, Remy, and Dayu administered the experimental retrovirus to one of the captives. The effect was immediate and horrifying. The creature's exoskeleton began to soften and dissolve. Its neural pathways rewired themselves before their eyes. Within hours, it was dead. Its body literally disassembled from within. It works, Dayu whispered, almost afraid to believe it. But delivery will be the challenge, Remy cautioned. We'd need to introduce this into every major Tirkane hive simultaneously. Otherwise, they'll adapt. Elisanda studied the dead alien. Through the containment glass, her expression unreadable. Then we'll need to hit them where they're most vulnerable, their central hive mind. For the first time since Earth fell, the crew of the Vespera began to plan not just another planetary destruction, but a targeted strike at the heart of the Tirkane Empire, the mysterious homeworld they had never seen, known only as Tyrannus Prime. "Navigation, set course for the outer rim of Sector 9, Elisanda ordered. "We need intelligence on Tyrannus Prime." As the Vespira left the nebula's protection, a new purpose drove its crew. One by one, planets had died in their wake. But perhaps, just perhaps, not all would need to be sacrificed before this war was won. The edge of Sector 9 marked the boundary of known space and the beginning of Tirkani core territory. No human had ever penetrated this far and returned alive. The Vespira drifted in silent running mode, its systems powered down to minimal levels to avoid detection. On the bridge, Commander Elisanda studied the long-range scanner data with intense focus. Beside her stood Dr. Remy Okoro, his mutated eyes, uniquely suited to perceiving patterns in the quantum field distortions that masked Tyrannus Prime's exact location. "There," he said suddenly, pointing to what appeared to be empty space on the display. "The gravitational readings don't match. The visible mass distribution. They're using some kind of cloaking technology on a planetary scale." "Can we penetrate it?" Elisanda asked. "Not from this distance," replied Science Officer Dayu. "But I've been analyzing the communication patterns between their outpost worlds. There's a signal relay node at these coordinates. If we can capture it intact, we might be able to use their own network to locate Tyrannus Prime precisely." The plan came together with desperate urgency. Time was running out. Intelligence from the surviving human colonies suggested the Tirkani were accelerating their expansion, now moving beyond merely destroying human settlements to targeting any alien civilization that might potentially ally with humanity. The relay node turned out to be a small moon base orbiting a gas giant. The Vespira approached under cover of the planet's magnetic storms, deploying a specialized team to infiltrate the facility. Hours later, they returned with the relay's central processor, a disturbing biomechanical hybrid that pulsed with its own rhythm. Dayu and Remy worked feverishly to interface with the alien technology, finally cracking its encryption with the help of data from their captive Tirkane specimens. What they discovered sent a chill through the command staff. "Tyrannus Prime isn't just their homeworld," Remy explained during the emergency briefing. "It's a living entity, a planetary consciousness that directs the entire species. The Tirkane aren't just a hive mind, they're extensions of this world organism." Tactical displays showed the location, a massive planet hidden within a nebula, of its own creation, surrounded by defensive structures unlike anything they'd encountered before. "Our retrovirus won't work on something this scale," Dayu said quietly. "We'd need to deliver it directly to the planetary core." A heavy silence fell over the briefing room. To reach the core meant landing on Tyrannus Prime itself, a suicide mission by any standard. Finally, Lieutenant Orion spoke up. "What about the Nova Protocol? Could we induce the planet's star to go supernova?" "The star is too stable," Navigator Ezria replied. "It would take weeks to destabilize enough for nova induction, and they'd detect our tampering immediately." Elisanda had remained silent, studying the tactical display. Now she looked up, her eyes reflecting the starlight from the viewport. "Fall. Don't need to destroy their star," she said softly. "We have another option." She called up the Vespira's schematics on the main display. This ship was designed with a last resort protocol that was never meant to be implemented. The engine core can be reconfigured to create a controlled quantum singularity. Stunned silence met her words as understanding dawned on her officers' faces. "A black hole," Weapons Officer Zaffrey whispered. You're suggesting we create a black hole inside their planet. Precisely. We modify the retrovirus delivery system to carry the reconfigured core. One ship, a volunteer crew, takes it to Tyrannus Prime and delivers it to the planetary consciousness. That's a one-way mission, Security Chief Rana stated flatly. Yes, Elisande agreed. It is. What followed was not an argument but a solemn discussion of logistics. The Vespera would transfer most of its crew to their last remaining colony ship, hidden in the Caldera system. A skeleton crew would take the warship on its final mission. When Elisande called for volunteers, every senior officer stepped forward, without hesitation. In the end, she selected a team of 12, herself included. As the transfer operations began, Dr. Remy approached Elisande in her quarters. "I've been studying the Tirkane communication patterns," he said without preamble. "There's something you should know. The planetary consciousness, it's afraid of us." Elisande looked up sharply. "Afraid? Of a species they nearly exterminated?" "Yes. The transmissions speak of humans as the uncontainable ones. That's why they struck Earth first and so hard, not because we were a threat militarily, but because something in our nature terrifies them." Elisande considered this as she packed the few personal items she would take on the final mission. A photograph of Earth seen from orbit, a service medal from before the war, a small book of poetry. "Then let's give them something real to fear," she said quietly. The final preparations moved swiftly. The retrovirus was modified to target the planetary nervous system, designed to paralyze Tyrannus Prime long enough for the singularity device to reach the core. The Vespera's engine was reconfigured, its safeguards removed. As the colony ship prepared to depart with the majority of the crew, Elisande addressed them one last time via ship-wide communication. "For 3 years, we have carried the burden of vengeance. One by one, planets died because we could not allow the Tirkane to spread their horror further. Each world we destroyed weighed on our souls, necessary though it was." She paused, looking around at her volunteer crew. Men and women who had lost everything to this enemy, and now prepared to give their lives to end the war. Today, we carry a different burden. Hope. Hope that after this final mission, no more worlds need die. Hope that the surviving colonies of humanity can rebuild without fear. Remember us not for the worlds we destroyed, but for those we saved. The colony ship pulled away, disappearing into the darkness of space. The Vespera, now stripped to its essential systems to make room for the singularity device, began its final journey toward Tyrannus Prime. As they approached the hidden world, cloaking systems engaged. Elisande stood on the bridge, watching the massive planet grow larger on the view screen. Its surface writhed with organic structures, the entire world one vast living entity. "Resistance is heavier than expected," reported Major Elian as they descended toward the surface, the ship shuddering. "Under enemy fire. Shields at 41%. "Stay the course," Elisande ordered calmly. "All power to forward shields and engines." The Vespera plunged through the atmosphere, trailing fire like an avenging meteor. Below them, massive defensive structures fired continuously, the planet's surface itself forming new weapons to repel them. "Impact in 30 seconds, called Navigator Ezria, her hand steady on the controls despite the violent turbulence. Elisande opened a final channel to all stations. "Activate singularity device. Deploy retrovirus countermeasures." As the ship screamed toward the planetary surface, penetrating layer after layer of the living world's outer tissue, Elisande remembered Earth, blue and green and beautiful. She remembered the billions lost. She remembered the worlds they had been forced to sterilize to stop the Tirkane advance. Impact in 5, 4. Around them, the planet's defenses suddenly went silent as the retrovirus took effect, temporarily, paralyzing the vast organism. 3, 2. "For Earth," Elisande whispered. "For all worlds." 1. the Vespira struck the planetary core at relativistic speed. The singularity device activated, collapsing in on itself with impossible gravity. The planet's crust buckled, then imploded as space-time warped around the forming black hole. From a safe distance, the colony ship watched as Tyrannus Prime collapsed into itself, dragged inexorably into the quantum singularity created at its heart. Throughout the galaxy, Tyrrhanae forces suddenly went dormant, their connection to the controlling consciousness severed forever. Aboard the colony ship, Dr. Dayu Xiao updated the ship's log one final time. Day 1, after Operation Event Horizon. Tyrannus Prime has been eliminated. Tyrrhanae forces throughout known space have ceased organized activity. Commander Elisande Voss and the volunteer crew of the Vespira are confirmed lost in action. She paused, then added, "One by one, planets died as humanity's warship left only ruin behind. But in the end, they saved us all. The rebuilding begins today." Across the stars, the surviving human colonies emerged from hiding. The galaxy would remember the terrible price of this victory, and the 12 aboard a black warship who had paid, it willingly transforming from instruments of vengeance to harbingers of peace. The age of planet killing was over. The age of renewal had begun.